Okay. Good evening, everybody. My fellow commissioners and I would like to welcome you to the September 3rd San Mateo County Harbor District Commission meeting. At this time, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Holsteiner.
Here.
Commissioner Tucker.
Here.
President Caravano.
Here. Thank you. At this time, we have an opportunity for the public to offer public comment to the commission on any items that are not on the agenda. And this evening, I would have 3 speaker slips. The first is Mr. Ed Larianis. And Mr. Larianis, we have a policy of 3 minutes.
Yes.
And the Deputy Secretary will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay,
Thank you.
My name is Edmund Lorenas. I'm here on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation, San Mateo County Chapter. Well, here we are again. I'd like to first express my deepest disappointment with all of you. You took the low road at every step. You, the Harbor Commissioner, and the Harbor Master have done us all a great disservice. We offered you a chance, Surfrider offered you a chance to work with us to solve the chronic problem of oil and fuel in the Inner Harbor. You told us there was nothing you could do about the fuel dock. KN Properties, on the other hand, asked you for guidance at the last meeting. There was complete silence. You said nothing. As a direct response to your lack of response, KN Properties had no alternative but to close the fuel dock. It was not an easy choice, but it had to do it. Closing the fuel dock had a negative financial impact on commercial operations at Pillar Point Harbor, and the outcry from those affected was loud and clear. Fix the problem, make sure it does not repeat. Once again, you took the low road. You claimed we had exaggerated our complaints, Surfrider, myself, and my wife. This was in direct contradiction to the photographs we had provided you. KN Properties and the U.S. Coast Guard did the right thing, and now we have a bit cleaner harbor. Surfrider is here again to make you that same offer. Let's work together to protect the commercial interests, the recreational interests, and the environmental interests of the harbor. Thanks.
Okay, next we have Dr. Mary Larianis, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Lorenas. I live in Lost Beach, and thank you so much for allowing me to once again express my concerns with Pillar Point Harbor fuel dock and water quality. The recent closure of the fuel dock was a horrible experience for all concerned. However, the prompt action taken by fuel dock management and Mr. Nearhan to clean up the fuel dock, which led to the all clear before reopening by the U.S. Coast Guard, is commendable. Commercial fishermen rely on access to the Pillar Point fuel dock for their livelihood. By the time the Coast Guard had arrived on Thursday, August 21st, to inspect the fuel dock, they found all was in working order and the fuel dock was cleared to reopen. My husband and I met with the Coast Guard after their inspection of the fuel dock. Their message was, please report all diesel, oil, or other fuel in the water. They said California law is quite clear on this subject. It is illegal to discharge oil or diesel into harbor waters. This includes accidental contamination, and in this case, size does not matter. According to the Coast Guard, an oily sheen on the surface of the water is just as important to report as a major spill. Oil and diesel are toxic to wildlife, and no one wants their children playing in water coated with diesel or oil. What happens in Pillar Point Harbor does not stay in Pillar Point Harbor. Contaminated water will eventually flow out of the harbor or contaminate bottom sediment and beach sand. Pillar Point Harbor is surrounded by a national marine sanctuary. Many of us fought long and hard to get this upgraded level of protection. This was done for the benefit of the public and for all those who enjoy our beautiful beaches and oceans as well as future generations. I respectfully submit this. I'm Dr. Mary Lorenas. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Keaton Erhan.
My name is Keaton Erhan, 210 San Mateo Road. We operate the fuel dock, and we take all the precautions. We follow all the rules and regulations. There were soil rags, like Mary mentioned. Those are commonly used to wipe the nozzles and hoses, and they're disposed of properly. And when we met with the Coast Guard, we explained them what we did. And they didn't have any problems with our fuel dock at all. I just want you to know that. Fuel dock is run right. On the other hand, if these folks think they can run fuel dock and ice plant in a better manner than or KN Properties, I'm happy to sell the fuel dock to these folks. We run that fuel dock for all the fishermen. We're out 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when squid is running everything. Well, a lot of the folks are sleeping. They're having a good time. We work hard. Our folks work very hard, make sure the marina is kept clean. We have all the tests done over and over again to make sure that fuel dock is run right. We will not contaminate any kind of environment. We don't believe in that. We will not do that. Accidents are going to happen. They do happen. We take every precaution. I would like you to know that. And if anybody has a question in any manner, I'm willing to meet day and night. I have several workers upgrading the system. They're sitting right here. They're locals. They live in Princeton. They do fish. They do a lot of other things. So if there's any negative thing we are doing, I like to know that. And but acquisitions are not the appropriate thing to do. I never got a call from surf riders or from anybody else. I got an email that went to 18 different agencies or whatever, maybe 5 or 6 different agencies. We had to answer everybody. And that is not the harbor board or his problem. We are no different business than any lessee you have by the pier there. Cat Joanne, if you get a bad hamburger or something like that, we certainly don't call Coast Guard or anybody else. On the other hand, if you're doing something wrong, then I'm open. Give us a call, 726-4402. Thank you.
Okay, and our last speaker is Mr. Brian Rogers.
Hi, I'm Brian Rogers. I spoke here before. The fuel dock issue I thought was interesting. I watched it on tape last meeting, and what I found interesting were the descriptions of the fuel spills that they were noticing, which were around the marina. Being a boat owner and being down at the marina this week, I looked around quite a bit. I was out paddling every day. Didn't see a lot of fuel in the water, which was good to see. The other thing I wanted to make note, because I know a lot of the board members are not boaters, the fuel dock would not be who I would be attacking when I see fuel in the water. Generally, fuel in the water comes from boats. Somebody's bilge probably overflowed, something was leaking, and it let out into the water, or pumped out into the water generally. An example of that is where I live, we don't even have a fuel dock. And in the last 5 years, we've had 3 fuel spills in our marina. They're a big deal. We take that seriously. That's important to boaters, and making sure that doesn't stay in the water and that it gets cleaned up right away, and you find the boat that's causing the problem and you fix it or get it removed. So I thought it was interesting that the surf riders attacked the fuel dock. What I also found interesting was that at least one commissioner claims membership or at least association with that group. And I'm curious if they prompted this. But thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Next on the agenda is staff recognition. We'll start with the general manager.
Nothing for manager.
Harbor
I
master.
have actually 2 letters of appreciation that are attached to the back of my report already in your packet. The first one is for an attempted suicide prevention, August 12th. Staff were called into play in a suicide attempt, and were part of a helping hand with the sheriff's office for that event. That was recognized Assistant Harbor Master John Draper, Deputy Harbor Master Jerry Pemberton for their efforts. And that letter is in the file and will go to their personnel files. The second letter of appreciation was, it's hard to describe this one politely, but basically we had one of our deputy harbor masters at night prevented an intoxicated male from going out and he probably drowned him. The gentleman got into his or someone's rowboat and tried to get beyond that point. Was inebriated enough that he probably just flipped over and drowned. And was able to get him out of the boat, and with the help of the sheriff at that point, he was then moved to a boat where he could sleep it off. And it's really important, for the effort of what these folks do at night, as well as during the day. The night crew has many things that they observe, and they help our tenants and customers. And that was Carrie Smith, Deputy Harbor Master, being recognized now.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is a consent calendar. There's one item on the consent calendar, and that is the minutes of the meeting from August the 20th.
Mr. President, I would move approval of the minutes with the correction as amended, item number 3 on the last meeting. The roll call vote was recorded as Bernardo, Brennan, Holsinger, Paravano, and Tucker supporting the motion, when in fact Commissioner Brennan did not support the motion. So the amendment would mean the ayes were Bernardo, Holsinger, Paravano, and Tucker, and the nays were Brennan. I would look for a second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Any questions, comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan. Commissioner Brennan.
I have a question. Are we
Please continue with the vote.
Commissioner Brennan. Commissioner Olsinger.
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Paravano.
Aye. Okay, item number 2, we have under new business, nomination for certification of appreciation from the California Association of Harbor Masters and Port Captains. And I had asked for this to be on the agenda, and we have, there's a letter that we have received that's addressed to, there's a letter that we are sending to Mr. Tom Welch, who is the awards chairman of the California Association of Harbor Masters and Port Captains. And it describes the activities and the commendations of the harbor staff. And I have included in this letter a special commendation for the harbor master. I feel like after the work that he's done, operating and managing 2 facilities, with the ongoing issues at these facilities, and with the vision that he brings to the Harbor District from his previous work, I would have asked Mr. Tom Welch to consider Harbor Master Grindy for a special award.
I would so move on the letter, Mr. President.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this letter being sent to Mr. Tom Welch on behalf of the Harbor Commissioners.
I have a question.
Please.
So can you tell us more about the awards and what this event is about?
Yes, it's an annual award ceremony that is conducted by the California Association of Harbor Masters and Port Captains. And this is an opportunity for anyone that's involved with that association to recommend awards and commendations for patrol staff for harbor masters.
Do we have a member of the board that is on this association?
We do not have a member of the board that's a member of the association.
So staff is a member?
Right. Harbor Master Grindy is the member representative for us.
And how often do they meet? I'm just trying to learn more about the organization.
This event is usually once a year.
So
And
is
they have
this
sub-events in different areas.
okay? So the association, do they have regular meetings?
scheduled meetings, yes. I don't have the dates with me. but
Okay, and so you attend those
I
meetings?
either attend or go online to, be on teleconference.
Teleconference.
Yeah, it depends where they're at. Because
So
they
they-
be all statewide.
Move up and down the coast? Thank you.
Just for information, the prior harbor masters that we had, Mr. Tanko and Mr. Johnson, were both members of that organization as well. Yes, it's been long.
And at this next event, I'm actually bringing a panel. I'm presenting as one of the panelists on abandoned boat issues. So I have a member of a legal firm, I have the Coast Guard, I have the sheriff from San Mateo County, and at least one boat vendor who removes boats attending, so we can take as a panel questions, because it's a problem statewide, let alone West Coast of abandoned vessels.
Sounds interesting. Is that going to be local or out of the area?
Santa Barbara.
Are the panelists local to Santa Barbara, or are they coming in?
This panel is from us, from our county.
Okay, just local?
Yeah.
San Mateo County people are going? Thank you.
There's usually panels, numerous panels on different topics throughout the world, on different subjects.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker,
Aye.
President Caravano.
Aye. Great, motion passes, thank you. Item number 3 is special use permit for the city of South San Francisco for a Thanksgiving fun run on Saturday, November the 15th. And we have a report from Ms. Harris.
Yeah, the city of South San Francisco is asking for a permit for their annual fun run, which they've had, I think, for about 25 years. The prior permit that we gave last year was actually the Friends of Department of Parks and Rec, but I believe that this year the city has taken over the project, and so they're asking for a permit and then also for a fee waiver. And the amount of the fee waiver would be approximately $335. They don't, they're not there any longer than I think 9:30, 10 o'clock. They really just set up a tent, or not a tent, a table within the marina, and so they're usually out of there by 9:30, 10 as the runners run through. But no, very little impact to the marina.
I'll move to approve and waive the fee as well.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item number 3. Any further questions, discussions? Hearing none, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Caravano.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4, bills and claims for a period ending September the 3rd. Give a report from the treasurer.
Yes. Mr. President, I have reviewed the bills and claims, and they are in order for the board's approval. And so moved.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bills and claims for the period ending September the 3rd. Any questions, discussion?
I've got a few questions. On the GHD West Trail culvert repair, is that for planning, or what is that about?
Where is it?
$4,689.16.
Oh, yeah, that's engineering for the West Trail repair, preparing of plans and specs to go to the permit authorities.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions and comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Caravano.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is reports, starting with the general manager.
Yes, you have my regular manager's report. I'll take any questions on that. I also have several announcements to make. So if there are no questions, I'll go with those.
Turn it off.
I had a question. I had a member of the public ask me today about an update on Romeo Pier.
Would you like one now?
That would be great.
Okay. Very short. Essentially, we did, as you will recall, pursuant to board action, have Moffett & Nichol do some engineering work to determine the condition of the pier and what it would take to actually remove the pier from the harbor, given its very precarious and deteriorated condition. And they were in touch with the Coastal Commission, who wanted to make sure that if and when the district were to take steps to remove the pier, that certain concerns relating to public access and obviously environmental concerns were taken into account. And so Moffett & Nichol have prepared some information for the district. You'll recall that initially in the budget for this fiscal year, there was money set aside, basically a very rough estimate for potential removal of the pier. That funding was removed from the budget in the course of the process by the Harbor Commission. So essentially, the status is that there is a potential project consisting of removal of the deteriorated Romeo Pier, but it is not currently funded. We do have information available so that as and when the commission decides if indeed it wants to proceed with removal of the pier, we can then take the necessary steps to seek permits and carry it out. Obviously, prior to that, the board would have to allocate funding for that. Just to provide, especially for the public in general, as part of the strategic business plan process which is underway, the consultant team will be looking at the Romeo Pier and the idea, which has been around in the Harbor District for almost as long as I've been with the district, the possibility of a new pier to replace the old Romeo Pier. The new pier in concept would be a multi-use pier that would have commercial fishing on it, public access, both of which are top priority Coastal Act policy items. It would also, in all likelihood, involve some relationship, use relationship with the Half Moon Bay Yacht Club, who have asked us on more than one occasion if they can participate in a new pier project. We have said certainly we would be receptive to that. Other potential future uses would include providing dockage space for the U.S. Coast Guard to bring in a Coast Guard presence to Pillar Point Harbor, which would complement the work of the Harbor Patrol, not to replace it. Also, possibilities for marine research, visitor serving commercial, a range of things. And what I would anticipate that the strategic business plan consultant team will do when they get around to looking at a new pier possibility is to bring forth some ideas, and obviously engage the public on that whole thing, especially Princeton folks.
Mr. President, if I may, point of order. I think we've gone a little bit far afield of the repairs on Romeo pier, and now we're talking about a new pier, which is not noticed publicly.
Sorry about that.
Plus, it's in your report, a brief update on the
Yeah,
new pier.
okay.
So since you mentioned the strategic plan, we had that one initial meeting
Yes.
in Princeton, and I see here in your report you have mentioned that there will be another meeting in the next few weeks. Do we have an idea when?
That's part of my announcements.
Okay.
And here we go. Okay, item number 1. Since you brought that up, I'll switch them around. As a matter of fact, today, working with the team, it looks like, subject to final approval, September 24th, we will have a second strategic business plan community engagement workshop. Some of you may recall that at the first introductory meeting, there was considerable interest in the whole process and feeling from members of the community that the process should allow for somewhat different kind of engagement of the community, and the consultants have taken that to heart and plan to have more of a workshop type of meeting where there will be more opportunity for the community to work with each other and the consultant team. So that's planned for the 24th. It would be an evening meeting. We are finalizing the venue. It will be local, obviously. And we will be obviously advertising that, putting it on the website, putting it in the papers, and so on. So that's that one. The next announcement relates to Oyster Point. Strategic business plan. Again, we have just been able, thanks to Harbor Master Grindy's efforts in this case, working things out with the city of South San Francisco. And it looks like we will have an initial strategic business plan meeting in South San Francisco on the 30th of September. That will also be an evening meeting. And again, for benefit of the public in particular, who are less familiar with perhaps with the very different circumstances of Pillar Point and Oyster Point. The Harbor District operates Oyster Point Marina for the city of South San Francisco under what's called a joint powers agreement. It's an operating contract. And so the city has a direct role in it. It's basically, on the one hand, a partnership. On the other hand, we're almost a de facto extension of the city. And so in planning for the strategic business plan element for Oyster Point, it'll be a somewhat different arrangement. Obviously, the public will be involved in a similar way. So anyway, 24th for Pillar Point, second meeting, 30th for Oyster Point, initial meeting. So there are those two things. Third, I attended the Plan Princeton's steering committee meeting last week, and it was announced there that the county and its consultant team are planning the next community engagement meeting on Plan Princeton for Thursday, October 2nd, at the Oceano. It sounds like it'll be in the Grand Ballroom again, at 6:30 p.m. That one's kind of fixed. And the subject will be to bring to the public, the community, the 3 plan alternatives. These are draft alternatives for land use, zoning, and so on, that the whole Plan Princeton process is moving toward. And they have taken information from their existing conditions work, from steering committee and so on. And now it will be time to bring these draft things to the public. So that's the next one there. One other, actually I've got 2 more. The West Trail is a 2-part announcement here. First, We are planning to hold another public weekend, Saturday late morning community meeting to update the public on the status of the West Trail repair project. And, you know, we know that there's a significant public interest in that. And we have almost completed the permit process. The Coastal Commission had a couple more questions which we expect to answer. It looks like the Regional Water Board is okay. The State Lands Commission has said we do not need to buy a $4,000 lease anymore because of new legislation that became law in the last session. So we're getting close to moving ahead on that project. And the second part of this announcement is I'm anticipating that within a month or so, I think maybe October, we might be able to bring to you a staff recommendation to seek construction bids to actually start on phase 1 of the project. This is important for the public to realize. Phase 1 will be what we initially called emergency repairs. They're urgency repairs. The Coastal Commission has tried to expedite their permit process. They too have staffing problems, as the city has. All kinds of people are having problems with staff. I don't know what it is. But in any case, we're moving ahead. And the first phase will be to repair the most severely eroded couple of hundred feet of the trail embankment. Then the understanding we have with the Coastal Commission is that we will concurrently keep working to bring to them a permit application for what they're calling a phase 2. Normally they don't like to segment projects, but in this case, because of the urgency, they said okay. The full project will consist of improving the entire trail alignment from the vehicle parking lot by the marsh right out to the beach. That means, most importantly, and we've heard from the community about this, and we agree, the trail surface will remain unpaved, no macadam or concrete. There are plenty of ways. Harbor Master Grindy, he has some experience with this. There's lots of alternative treatments that are wheelchair accessible, ADA compliant. So the first component is doing the whole trail. Second, we will replace the plan is to replace the existing portable toilets with a new ADA compliant restroom. Both of these two components of the whole project are capable of getting grant funding. For the trail, it's the Coastal Conservancy. For the restroom, it's the Wildlife Conservation Board. We will be seeking grant funds for those. The last piece, of course, is the parking lot. Again, trying to improve the parking surface there. Again, no pavement. Again, there are ways of dealing with that. So we're moving ahead on this project.
When will that be agendized for a report to the board and the public so that we know what the project scope is?
I just finished saying that we're thinking about October, and that's going to depend on getting the last couple of permit approvals from the Coastal Commission, the Corps of Engineers, both of whom are having their staffing problems. The point being that we don't want to get out into a bid process and then find we've got to back up because there's some issue. So we're very impatient, but we need to move in.
Peter, what's your last point?
And the last one I present to you with mixed feelings because I realize that after 17 and a half years, it's time for me to retire from the Harbor District. And my final day of work officially will be January 3rd, 2015. I will be on active duty between now and then. I will continue to work with staff and the board on matters before us. assist as I can with a transition. And just for a little background, I'll be brief here, but I've been considering this actually for a couple of years, but I felt that there were certain things that needed to be completed, things I wanted to get completed, other things that I wanted to start, if you will. One of those, as an example, the strategic business plan process, which I felt had to get going. And so I feel that, in my tenure since May of 1997, a lot has been accomplished. It's been very challenging for me. It's been personally satisfying. I withstood a number of complaints which have been filed, which turned out not to be valid and sustained and didn't prevent me from continuing my work for the Harbor District and with staff and the board and the public. And I've enjoyed working immensely with the staff. And I must say, and one reason why I didn't make any staff recommendation earlier is I wanted to do it now. I couldn't do anything of what I've been doing without the support and assistance of our staff, which is, I consider to be outstanding, everyone. And so I wanted to make that known. Additionally, I have to say that I have appreciated tremendously the support of the Harbor Commission to assist me as General Manager and Staff Director. And looking at everything overall, I feel that I'm leaving the district in good hands and basically in good condition. Obviously, there are things that need doing. There are always things that need doing. But at that point, I'll stop and say thank you all.
Well, Mr. President, if I may, just a moment. I'm sure there'll be many accolades as we move forward towards his actual date of departure. But a little bit surprised. I've been here 16 years. You've been here 17 and a half. It's going to be interesting not having you around. And I mean that sincerely. You will be the first real retirement in that sense that I will have experienced, or my colleague Pietro will have experienced for that matter. And I think that your work for the district, having come to us from the Coastal Conservancy, has been very rewarding for me. I mean, you had a knowledge and you brought a knowledge to this organization that heretofore we didn't have, as I recall. I'm so very pleased and proud to have been associated with you. You've done tremendous work over those 17 years. And I'm sure when the resolutions and the proclamations come in from other agencies and other departments and other organizations that have benefited from your knowledge, whether it's the Authority Bank, or it's CMANC, or it's any other agency, Port Captains Association. You've done great work for us, and I sincerely want to thank you, and I applaud your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. President, ordinarily we have a time for commissioner comments at the end. I wasn't prepared for this, but I would like to acknowledge how helpful Peter Grinnell was to me in all the time that the last 10 years I've been interested in the business of the Harbor District. In the time in 2012 as a candidate for the Harbor Commission, as a newly appointed commissioner, he's gone out of his way to make time and to be informative. I'm pleased to see we have 4 of the candidates for Harbor Commission here that are on November's ballot, other than the sitting commissioners. And I know that you have been or will be equally as available to and helpful to them as you have been to me and the others in the past 17 and a half years. You've shown an even-handedness from what I've seen. I would say that you tend to talk too much. And I've thought about that. And I would have to tell you that that's a compliment, because I see you with such a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, that you are so eager to share and pass along to everybody. And so when you're asked a question such as you were tonight, you go beyond what the question is because you want everybody to have the benefit of your knowledge and your experience. And so when I say you talk too much sometimes, I want you to know that I consider that to be the highest compliment to you as a professional and as someone who's extraordinarily knowledgeable and experienced in managing harbor districts and in taking care of our oceans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For sure. I would like to add my comments, which are going to be brief because I don't have much more time to think about thanking you for your service to the San Mateo County Harbor District, also to the state of California, which goes way, way back. It's the first time I met you was when I was president of the statewide Commercial Fishermen's Association. And that, since that beginning, I've noticed just a tremendous amount of dedication that you have toward coastal communities, toward coastal issues, and more of the humanness of the coastal zones. And it is very encouraging to look back during our relationship that this has really nurtured many other relationships amongst other groups, other organizations, and individuals. And we're not alone in thanking you for your work and contributions to the marine environment, to the coastal communities. Your name will certainly be a legend amongst a lot of those that will remember those that protected, that safeguarded what we have, and look toward the future of what we need as coastal communities, and more specifically here at the Harbor District as operators and managers of a port and marina. So this does come as a surprise to me, and I know that this triggers a lot of work for all of us. And at the same time, I can imagine this probably was not an easy decision for you to make. And I applaud your strength in being able to come forward and make that kind of a decision. But I am sure that family has a lot to do with that. And I, for one, feel that this is part of your trait. You are very, very much of a family person. And the idea that there's new additions in your family, I think, speak highly to your desire to do things with them. So, as I said, my comments will try to be brief, and I will certainly have a lot more as time continues.
Thank you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Okay, next is Director of Finance. We have a report.
Mr. President, I would simply call your attention to the third bullet item as part of my duties as treasurer for the Board of Commissioners, in addition to reviewing the bills and claims and on a monthly basis. I also am always looking for ways that the district's financial condition can be kept healthy. I asked our Director of Finance to look at the rate of return we were getting from the San Mateo County Investment Pool and make outside inquiries of what rates of return might be available. Our funds in the San Mateo County Investment Pool are earning a 0.75% rate of return, and are liquid, which means they're immediately accessible. Looking outside of that and to other opportunities, they want to tie up funds in significant amounts for 18 months for interest rates that are 20% of what's available from the San Mateo County Investment Pool. So I'm pleased to say that we are doing well in terms of our rate of return, and that there are no better alternatives reasonably available to the district that we're aware of.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on item 6?
I have a question.
Please.
Could anyone here give us more of an update on how things are going with let's see, it says here that the district applied for a 2015 Intercept program to allow special districts to report uncollectible funds to the state. If any state refund is due to someone owing an amount to the district, the amount due to the district will be withheld and remainder will be due to the citizen. The state then takes the preceding fee and the remainder is sent to the district. Can we get an update on that?
That is the update. I'm not sure what more.
Well, could you explain it a little bit? Where we're at with that?
We've applied and been accepted, so come tax return time, we start getting some coming in from this program. So what happens is people apply for their state tax return. If they're due money, there's a little notation on it that says, nope, that money has to go to the harbor district, so the money goes to the harbor district. That's how it works. So we've applied, we've been accepted, so now we just wait.
Okay, so it will go into effect for this.
So the new, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. Ms. Harris.
On my report, I'll take any questions.
Have you received any feedback on I don't know, what are we calling it, a Wi-Fi prototype or something, test
I
run?
haven't received any feedback.
No feedback, okay. So when is the full rollout going to be complete?
I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to our IT person and check and see. I would check the thing for a little bit, see, the usage and things like that. If I haven't gotten any complaints, so I'm actually working on it.
And so do you know what is left to install?
Well, I think at this point, we want to have a wider coverage area. So I believe when I was out there one time, it was halfway down Johnson Pier, halfway over to the recreational dock, halfway through the parking lot by, like halfway to the kayaks. And that's mostly because the trees are there and it's not on that side. So that's basically our coverage area. And it's going to depend on if there's trucks there, if there's the windy day, whatever. So we like to get the coverage out further to the end of Johnson Pier and all the way over to the recreational dock and then some. So those would be the next stages. Right now we're waiting on Comcast to put in the line, which will happen on Friday. And that Comcast line will be over at the recreational dock restrooms, and then we'll be able to extend it more. So that's basically what we're waiting on now. Once that gets done, we can widen the coverage area.
And how about for Oyster Point?
We are still waiting for Comcast to explain to us why it's going to cost us $4,000 to have a line put in. So once they tell me why they're doing it and where they're doing it from, then we can decide if that's what we want to spend. If not, we'll have to come up with a funding. But they said that's how much it would cost, but they haven't told me why.
So this is different than what we originally planned on doing?
No.
So Comcast was always part of the...
If we wanted to have we could do it with what we have. The problem is the service that we have right now at Oyster Point even for our office, for the harbor office, comes from the office that we are in, the admin office. We have like a Wi-Fi connection that goes from our office to Oyster. That's not going to get us proper Wi-Fi coverage for Oyster Point. So we have to try to do it with a stronger signal and a better way with a hard, I would call it a hard line, as opposed to what we have now, which is a Wi-Fi between the two offices. So that's why we want to go the Comcast route.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last report is the Harbor Master Duty.
You have my report. I'll take any questions. And I do wish to remind everyone on the second page of the front page, and the back of the front page is calendar dates for events coming up, just so that it's on your calendars for various tenant events and other events we're planning this year for this calendar year.
Could we get an update on the permitting process for the new hoist on Johnson Pier and the electrical project in the Pillar Point Harbor parking lot?
I can bring that back, yeah. Or you want to update now?
Well, if it's
I
something...
don't have everything with me right now on the refrigeration side, the electrical on that side. We're just waiting on permit approval. It's going through a review. And it takes forever because it's a coastal development permit. So I figured probably another 3 months.
Okay. And the same thing for the hoist?
I believe from what I see that he's actually pretty close.
The permit's pretty
Yeah.
close? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, one last question. How are we doing with occupancy at Oyster Point Marina?
Well, that's why the dashboard is here. Occupancy stays about the same there from about a 60 to 70% depending on the season. And that's what I'm working on, trying to bring other benefits to that marina. One item that I'm going to be bringing to the board in the next meeting or two is we brought some specials for rates recently for Oyster Point. And one of the events that we now have FAA approval for, which was kind of a bear in itself to get, which is to do a fireworks 4th of July program next July. And working in concert with the city, the chamber, and Brisbane Chamber, and all that, we're still working that effort. But I anticipate that's going to also make more of a destination for that location with that all-day event. And then some farmer market type things we're bringing for this coming year.
I'm looking at the dashboard. Where on here does it show, I'm just missing it, I guess, the total occupancy opposed to the slip, the number of
Well,
slips?
if you're looking at what's called overall for Oyster Point,
I see that.
okay, then you can see where we are.
Can you
The
explain
lime
that
green,
graph?
the lime green is basically showing a little over 60%. If you look to the left, you see percentage numbers,
Yeah.
and then you look across, you would see that we're a little above 6 or 60%.
So it looks like since January of 2014, we were about at 70% and we've been dropping to 60% throughout 2014.
And that seems to be a constant. If we go back, it seems to be a fluctuation depending on what's fishing over there, because there's a lot of people who bring their boats in. This doesn't show all the sizes, that's why I did the other size piece.
Yeah.
Because what you get is a lot of people with their private vessels, and they may either dry store it or they'll wet store it, and then they go fishing for halibut or striper or whatever, depending on the time of year. So each year has a different season that may drive that higher or lower. But what we're hoping is to get more long-term stayers, so you don't have the number going up and down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, any committee reports? Hearing none. Next, harbor commissioners make public statements. Are there any harbor commissioners that would like to make any statements?
I have a statement.
Please.
So at the July 16th meeting, the board voted to approve 2 agenda items. The first was an agenda item with a report on a fish buying fee audit that has been ongoing for some time, being performed by JJA CPA, which is our outside CPA auditing firm. And so the board approved having that item placed on a future agenda. It hasn't been placed on a future agenda. I'm concerned about that. And then also at the same meeting on July 16th, the board voted to have a report from staff on the Dornbush report, which it's my understanding that report is going to provide data on fish buying fees throughout California. And that also has not been placed on a future agenda. And at our very last meeting, the general manager said that our board packets would now contain, or maybe the agendas, that might be the best place to put it, a section which lists agenda items that have been approved by the board but have not yet been placed on a future, or not been yet placed on an agenda, so that, think of it like a parking lot, so that the board can keep track of agenda items that were requested that are still outstanding, just as a way to track them. Because it gets kind of confusing with various board members requesting agenda items, and if they're not placed on an agenda, then you have to go back through the minutes, or you have to go back, since the minutes don't contain much info, you have to go back through the meeting videos to see what was actually requested. So that hasn't happened, at least not that I saw. So I'm wondering if we could get that corrected. Obviously, I'm just commenting here, so just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And then at the last meeting, I made a motion to place an item on a future agenda, and that item that I requested was for the Harbor District to reconsider membership in the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank Authority. I couldn't get a second, so that item did not get placed on a future agenda. And I'm concerned about this because it's become clear to me that the Harbor District staff is spending staff time working on things related to the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank Authority, and I think that's something that the board needs to consider. So I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Any other?
Mr. President, thank you. I'd simply like to restate my gratitude to General Manager Peter Grinnell, but also I want to acknowledge the presence of Robert Grant here. He's been coming to the Harbor District meetings. He's one of the candidates in for the 2-year seat that I am also a candidate for, and I simply want to acknowledge your presence and welcome your interest in the Harbor District. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just had a couple of thoughts. It probably speaks to the lack of a second on my colleague's behalf for the Infrastructure Authority / bank. I've been made aware that the Fair Political Practices Commission has investigated a complaint and has found that there's no complaint warranted and there's no conflict of interest or problem with the issue of our participation in the bank. Secondly, I was contacted by the district attorney's office in San Mateo County by their investigation division and interviewed regarding my knowledge of the authority. And at the conclusion of the interview, I was told that his report to his superiors would be that there's no conflict and that there's no problem and he didn't see an issue here. So I just wanted to clarify that. Those are two things that came up as a result of the authority, and neither one of them seemed to hold water, as I suspected they wouldn't. I have things, I'm sorry, did you?
No.
I have things for item number 2, if we're going to go there.
Okay, let me finish up on item number 1. I have a couple comments or statements. One is that I would like to say that I absolutely admire the work that staff has done in dealing with the situation at the fuel dock that came to a head during our last meeting, before our last meeting, during the last meeting, and subsequently thereafter. I see that there was no reason for anyone to doubt the efficiency and professionalism that the Harbor Patrol staff, specifically the Harbor Master, did that was wrong, that was ill-intentioned, and meant to do any harm. As commissioners, we were all notified of events that were ongoing, And I applaud Harbor Master in keeping us apprised of the situation, because it definitely took on a life of its own. And it turned, the end result was that there was some harm done. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of harm done. There was a lot of revenue that was lost. There was a lot of reputation that was damaged. And it's not pleasant when this happens. So I would like to mention that I personally appreciate the work that Harbor Master Grindy and his patrol staff did in mitigating a lot of the potential damage that could have been a lot more had this thing not been taken under control. It certainly is something that I hope will never happen again, and I think there's been some lessons learned here. I think back to a similar incident that occurred at the beginning of the year with the sewer line underneath the pier, when the harbor master did come under criticism for not attending to it. And at that time, I felt that any criticism of him and his staff was completely unwarranted. So those are my statements. And then lastly, I also would like to mention that I was contacted by the San Mateo County District Attorney Office Detective Division on a complaint that they had received regarding the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank and Mr. Grinnell. So those are my statements. Item number 2 under this, we have any commissioner would like to put out a meeting or an agenda item on a future meeting.
Mr. President, I have one item. I would make a motion to place a resolution / proclamation honoring Peter Grinnell on his departure from being the general manager. And I would, in my motion, ask that be placed on the first meeting in November.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to place an agenda item regarding the issuance of a proclamation for the general manager on the November 5th, 2014 meeting. I believe that's the date.
Yes.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Farrell.
Aye. Motion carries, so that'll be on the November 5th agenda. Any other agenda items?
I have some.
Please.
So to follow up on the comments about the district attorney, I have a request for a future agenda item, and I understand a letter was sent by the DA to our council today. I haven't read it. My request is to reconsider the Harbor District's membership in the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank Authority. I'd like to get a second to put this on a future agenda.
Hearing no second, the motion fails.
Okay. The next one is you know what, I'll save that for later. That's it, thanks.
Okay. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I will second it. We are adjourned until...
All in favor?
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.